All right, everyone. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. My apologies. We had a 1 o'clock live stream scheduled for today, 1 o'clock Eastern time, with a guest on Miami football. So if you subscribe to the channel, then you got the notification at some point, at least through the community page, that we had a Miami live stream scheduled today at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Unfortunately, that had to be canceled just here in the last few minutes. I am always open to talk Miami football, so I'm here for the next hour to take your calls. So this has turned into a call-in show. So we've converted this from Miami Live to our Voice of College Football call-in show. So there's the line right there, 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. We released a video this morning on the Florida-Georgia battle for the SEC Eastern Division. Not just the battle for the 2020 season, but the battle to own the SEC Eastern Division. Great discussion we had this week with David Waters from Gators Breakdown and Palmer Thombs from Dogs 247 Sports. Georgia, Florida, the great debate. SEC Eastern Division dominance on the line. We talked it up this week. That video was released this morning, so check it out. I will be on the live chat. I will answer every single comment and question on the live chat, as well as taking your phone calls at 860-325-3687. Before I start to answer the live chat comments and say hi to everyone, I will remind everyone that the Super Chat is on. Also, you can contribute to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, by going down into the description section of any of the videos, and you see a link to Venmo and PayPal. A number of people have done that recently, and I thank you so much for that. They have been acknowledged here on previous live streams. Okay. In regards to the content that you can anticipate seeing over the next several weeks and months leading into the 2020 season that we hope is on time, the last week of August / the first week of September, or most likely a 1st of October start. Don't hold me on record for that. I'm asked every day when the college football season is going to start, if it's going to start, and I give you my estimation based on what we see and what we hear, but I don't know. Nobody knows. So we're going to see a number of debate topics, a number of analysis points on the channel over the next several weeks and months leading into the 2020 season. Again, most recently released this morning, the great Georgia-Florida debate for the SEC Eastern Division in 2020 and beyond. Which program is best equipped to dominate the SEC Eastern Division over the next several years, and which team is the best this fall? David Waters, Gators Breakdown, Palmer Thombs from Dogs 247 Sports, and myself knocking that one out. All right. Over the next 3 days, you will see our Pac-12 coaches rankings from myself, Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football, and Michelle Gardner from Arizona Republic, and I compared our list of Pac-12 coaches rankings, the top 5 quarterbacks in the Pac-12 and the top 5 running backs in the Pac-12. Also, I'm going to address SEC dominance. The rest of college football doesn't want to hear it necessarily, but I will be addressing SEC dominance. What does it look like? What does it mean? What will it look like? How much of it's true? How much of it's groupthink? Because that has certainly been the narrative in the past, I believe. The SEC won 7 consecutive national championships from 2006 through 2012. We all know that. That doesn't necessarily mean that, certainly we've seen this play out a number of times, and be an example each many seasons in which the team that wins the national championship doesn't necessarily play in the best conference. That's obvious. If anything, college football is set up in a way in which it helps you to play in a weak conference to win a national championship. That's obvious. That doesn't even need to be debated. That's pretty obvious. The way the system's set up, it's not like the NFL where, okay, we play in a tough conference, therefore we went 11-5, or we play in a tough division, therefore we went 11-5. You went 13-3 because you play in a softer division, even though you're not as good as us. But then we're just going to play in the playoffs. No, college football set up even less today than in the past, but it still is a factor that as long as you've got enough respect and you play in a major conference, it helps you to have a weak schedule. It helps you to play in a weaker conference because we're still locked into a record system. Not an objective system, but a record-based system. Now, the SEC is going to be given basically a one-game lead over the rest of the country, all the other conferences, meaning that an SEC team at the top can have one more loss and still make the college football playoff or not necessarily win the division. Then the Big Ten would be given that next preferential treatment, and some other conferences are playing from behind to a certain extent. I know that there are aberrations. I know that there are outliers to that model. Oklahoma, Ohio State in 2017 would be one example. Anyway, I'm talking SEC dominance. That video is going to be released in the next week. The Ohio State-Michigan rivalry exploded in the 1970s under Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes and the 10-Year War. If you're not familiar with that term, then study a little college football history. It was basically from 1969 through 1978 that Bo and Woody waged a 10-year war. They were the coaches on the sidelines, and Ohio State and Michigan, that rivalry took preeminence in college football, went to the top of the rivalries of college football based on any metric you want to put out there. Bo beat Woody 5-4 with one tie in 10 years. And then Woody Hayes, of course, was dismissed of his job following 1978, punching a player on the sideline in the Gator Bowl. Ohio State-Michigan was a rivalry before 1969 and certainly one after that. And there would be an argument right now among some people whether it's a rivalry now because of the Ohio State dominance. But again, the 10-year war that basically encompassed the 1970s brought this rivalry from being on par with other rivalries to the top of college football. I've renamed the last 15 years as the 10-year war, follow me, 15-year bloodbath. 15-year bloodbath. And I am going to break down and have the metrics of the rivalry and where it stands and why it's been so lopsided for the last 15 years. Okay. This next video that I have targeted to produce in the next week or so, this one isn't necessarily one in which I expect too many people to be interested in, but I get comments all the time about the 2018 Ohio State-Michigan game. Michigan was a favorite. Ohio State blew them out. A number of people claimed after the game, of course, they knew, of course, Ohio State's going to blow them out. They beat them every year. But there was certainly a reason why Michigan was the favorite. They should have been the favorite. They were the favorite. There was a big reason, obvious reason, but I'm going to spell it out. Why Michigan was the favorite against Ohio State, despite losing by 23 points in a game that wasn't in the second half even that close. Why Michigan was the favorite in the 2018 game against Ohio State. Okay. When they were down, I'm looking forward to this series. When they were down, or this may just turn out to be one particular video. I think if you watch me on a regular basis, you know that I've got a pretty good handle on college football history. So all I needed to do was put numbers to what I already knew concerning when the elite programs. I'm looking at two right behind me, not necessarily elite all the time, elite all time throughout the history of college football, but elite at some point. And I've got most of them up here on the rack. When those programs have been down, it's right now inconceivable to think that Clemson could ever be down. When are they going to be down? It feels as though Clemson has established something that will never erode, never deteriorate, and they will always be an elite. At this point, even though that they've only been at this status for about 5 years, they've been at this status for 5 years. They've been good consistently for about 8 or 9, maybe 10. 2011 was a good season in which they went to the Orange Bowl and won the ACC. But it's only been about 9 years that they've been good, consistently good. And then the last 5 years, they've been elite and arguably the best program in the country. So it's inconceivable to think Clemson, what is it going to take for them to be down? I go through the elites, and again, the elites are the elites, and I categorize those different ways. There's the blue blood elite, all-time elites. There are the current elites. So Clemson would be an example of not fitting in the first category, definitely fitting in the second category. And then there are elites in the past. I got one right there. Miami, not elite all time. Not elite today. They've been elite. They have been arguably the best program in college football for spurts of time. They have been elite for about 15 years of its history. They've been elite. Not elite now, not elite all time, but they've been elite. So I go through all those programs and talk about the down stretches. And for some of you that have only been watching college football, let's say for the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, even 20 years, you might be surprised at some folks on the rack here. Big programs that have had down stretches for considerable lengths of time. And what do I consider down? If you're an elite program, you're competing for national championships on a consistent basis. I took it a step down from there in holding to that regard. I consider being down is when you are not competing for your conference. Seriously competing for the conference championship. Seriously competing means that with a week or two left in the season, you have a reasonable chance of winning the conference championship. If you're competing for the conference championship, you are not down. Is Penn State an elite right now? No. Are they down? Obviously not. They are winning 10 or 11 games a year, and they are competing for the Big Ten championship. Competing again, they are within a game of winning the Big Ten. And this has been going on now for the last 4 years, 2016 through 19. So again, I'll run through the framework and the schedule. The video will be released later this week. When they were down, looking forward to that one and getting your feedback on all these videos. We've got one coming out, Clemson versus Ohio State. Well, that's an easy debate right there. I'm taking it from the standpoint of and the viewpoint of the fan bases. So if you're a Clemson fan, you've got bragging rights over everybody. If you just want to talk trash in college football, you want to be a Clemson fan. The only thing they've done wrong recently, and I know they haven't won every game, of course, but basically they've vindicated themselves in every situation, except last year's national championship game. They're on a 1-game losing streak. They lost the national championship game. So you could say, well, if you want to merely talk trash and be on the top of the hill, you would want to be an LSU fan because you just went 15-0 and won a national championship. But it's been 1 year. LSU certainly has a number of teams in the SEC. Alabama would be first in line that they don't necessarily have bragging rights. I know they won the last meeting, but LSU fans cannot talk trash to Alabama fans. That day is yet to come, at least during this modern time. I would think LSU needs to beat Alabama a few more times before they start talking trash after losing 7 or 8 consecutive times. And the last time that they faced, of course, for the national championship, the BCS championship. So I would think if you want to just merely talk trash and that's your goal in life, which I think is a pretty pathetic goal, but if that's your goal in life, then you would want to be a Clemson fan because the LSU fans would be the only people you would not care to talk to. If you want to talk to anybody else, you've got the upper hand. Alabama, you beat them the last time. You smoked them. Ohio State, you're 4-0, on and on and on. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Marcus, Nate.
Hey, Nate. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on today?
I think everyone didn't notice or didn't know if you're going to do a call-in show today. I was like, whoa, bit off schedule, but it's fine for me. I like doing call-in shows. The one thing or two things I want to talk about is like when you said about the Ohio State and Michigan about that war thing stuff.
Yes.
Remember what you said that like when you said the 10-year war or
yes.
whatever it was.
Yeah. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't born that year, but I mean, my dad told me all about it.
Yep.
And it was a really big rivalry back then. And I mean, I had to say this, like why is Ohio State fans want to get rid of the rivalry, the game? Because I don't get it. It's still a rivalry because Michigan still leads the series. I mean, I just don't get it because it's kind of stupid what they're doing. Like Ohio State fans, actually.
You think Ohio State fans want to get rid of the rivalry? I understand what you're saying to a certain extent. I don't even know what that means, though. So,
well, I mean, you can go first.
I was just going to say that, the term rivalry, and it's not an official title, so anyone can say anything's a rivalry to a certain extent, but of course there has to be some kind of backing there, and if somebody was going to ask me, which I've been asked many times, what a rivalry is, then I go through what I consider to be a rivalry. And
I think you're breaking up a little bit.
I'm breaking up?
Well, there we go.
So
can
I certainly have a framework for what I consider to be a rivalry. And the Ohio State-Michigan series checks every box except one, and it's not currently competitive.
I get that. I mean, I think I won't think every, but maybe some Ohio State fans want to get rid of the rivalry because they think they're better than us right now. But
well, they are.
I get that. I know. I get that. It's just, I mean, look at the all-time series right now. Michigan's leading the series. I mean,
well, Michigan started playing football like 15 years before Ohio State did, so they had a huge, enormous advantage at the turn of the century when the series started. You know, if I started a business today and then you waited almost 20 years to start a business, I should have a better business than you for a long time.
I mean, yeah, you have a lot of subs right now than me. I get that. I get your point, but I mean, it all started like in 1902 or no, I don't think that's right. Talking about that.
They played the 100th game in the series in 2003, but I think there was a gap in there somewhere. So anyway, it was around 1900.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah, and the other thing I was gonna say that I mean, Michigan has to do something to beat Ohio State. It's either Don Brown's defense or Harbaugh. I can't tell which one is which. No. I mean, I can't tell which one is doing it correctly because I think Harbaugh. The only problem for Harbaugh is he needs to develop players like he did in Stanford and NFL.
Well, that's why he was hired. He was hired because he loves the university and loves the school, and he has a passion for Michigan football. So it was determined that if you combine that with what he was able to accomplish at San Diego, Stanford, and with the San Francisco 49ers, all three very successful stops, that Michigan would be a juggernaut and he'd be able to do it there. And let me clarify something. I believe that Ohio State-Michigan is the greatest rivalry in college football. Even to this day, even with Ohio State winning 15 of 16, if you take everything into consideration, I believe it is still the greatest rivalry in college football. And for those folks that dismiss it as a rivalry at this point because of the Ohio State domination, I understand that viewpoint. I understand that argument, but we can go through the country, and if you look at every rivalry, somebody is what could be argued dominating that rivalry. Oregon State is called the Civil War. It's a rivalry. Oregon dominates the series. It's not even close, but it's still a rivalry.
No. Just like the little brown jug with Minnesota and Michigan. Is that right?
Sure.
Or no?
That is.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I mean, that's all I have. But I'm thankful to have you as a good friend of mine. So I have to go. Have a good day, Mark.
Thanks, Nate. I appreciate that. You have a great day.
You too.
Guy Nate on the line. I will respond to any questions or comments in the live chat. Will we have college football this season? My guess is yes. It is a estimated guess. My guess right now, I don't want anyone coming back to me in a few months and saying, Mark, you were wrong, because I'm clearly stating this is a guesstimate. I'm going to go with an October start for college football. Based on everything we know about what's going on with the curve in the country, what the guidelines are, what the reopening of the economy looks like at this point in various places, which is on the verge of being reopened in phases, and then what that means for student athletes, I believe we'll be playing in front of empty stadiums the first week of October. Because if you look at the guidelines and then you look at what it takes to prepare a football team, which is typically August camp this time of year, but the individual workouts and all those were in place after spring football, and we didn't have any of that. So the teams are going to need more time than the usual month to prepare for the season. We're going to go that route. So, Darren, it is great to see you. This is the first time I've seen your handle in any of the comments sections. So, welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Darren would love to know who you root for, and how long you've been watching. Ballard, good to see you. Nate, of course, it was nice to talk to you as well. All right. We got Pinero 5, Piru on the line. Let's go blue. He must have loved that last discussion that we just had. I appreciate the salute each and every time, sir. You are a faithful viewer, supporter, commenter to the channel. Appreciate that. In terms of the live streams, here's the deal with the live streams. So this is what I love to do best. It's to talk college football directly with you, whether it's going through the comments and the questions in the live chat or taking the phone calls. I would do this every day, every night, 2 shows a day, whatever, stay on for 3 hours talking college football. There's an issue with my personal schedule and with work schedule, just interfering with locking into a regular schedule. Not last off season, I believe it was the year before. There was an off season in which I locked into a live stream schedule and I held to it the entire off season, and it worked out great. Everybody knew I was going to be live this time during the course of the week. And then I would surprise people by just jumping on, and certainly you can't fault me for that, as long as I can keep to my regular schedule and then just jump on whenever. And people enjoyed that. Just all of a sudden, boom, it's midnight, Thursday night, I just jump on, start taking calls, start talking college football, and people seem to enjoy that. Unfortunately, just the way my life is constructed right now, between work and other situations, it is difficult for me to lock into a schedule. So, for example, I have only committed myself to a live call-in show on Sunday night at 10 o'clock Eastern time. And I will discuss the rest of the live stream schedule here after we take this call. And that call dropped. So again, we've committed ourselves to a live call-in show every Sunday night at 10 o'clock. Unfortunately, for example, this past Sunday night, unfortunate for the channel, fortunate for me because of certain plans, I had to reschedule last minute at 6 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. for last Sunday night. Sunday night, 10 o'clock Eastern time, call-in show. But this is one of the big reasons why you need to subscribe to the channel. Therefore, you get the notifications that I post both as. So as soon as a live stream is scheduled, there should be, as soon as I schedule the live stream, should be a notification that goes out to you. And also, I update the community page almost every day to say, live stream coming up Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Live stream coming up 10 o'clock on Sunday night. And then I explain what kind of live stream it is. Florida State live stream, Ohio State live stream, Miami live stream, call-in show, whatever it is. So we are committing ourselves to a call-in show every Sunday night at 10 o'clock Eastern time, but that may have to change from week to week at times. Also, we've got a Florida State live stream. So college football fans understand that even though we talk and lock in on, let's say, Miami, Florida State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, for these live streams, you are welcome. And there are fan bases represented from all over the country, and our regular supporters jump in each and every time. And I cannot explain how much I appreciate that. So for the past 7 or 8 weeks, we've talked Notre Dame football at 6 o'clock on Monday nights. These are all Eastern time. Florida State's our Tuesday night show. That is typically at 7 o'clock. But again, because I don't do this full time, which that's the goal. And if you catch the vision, I would appreciate the support. That because of my other factors in life, work and otherwise, the Florida State Seminoles live show is locked in for Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time, but that's the regularly scheduled time. We've had to move that from time to time on Tuesday. The Miami show, whether that's with a Wholesome One or with Cam Underwood, that floats a little bit as well. We used to be on Wednesday night. We used to have a run of shows on Wednesday night but that's no longer possible because of my work schedule. Therefore, for example, I was set to do a Miami Live today at 1 o'clock Eastern time if you received that notification on the community page. But unfortunately, our guest could not show up. And I found that out about 15 minutes before the show. So here we are. We hope to do a Miami Live show on Saturday, as we have the last several weeks with Cam Underwood. And again, lock in on the notifications and you will get that. So you subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, you get the notifications, and you know when we're going live. And for some of you who have noted that, hey, Mark, I didn't get the notification, I don't know what to tell you there. YouTube is / Google, it's run by Google, isn't necessarily an outfit. They're so massive and so large, it's not like I can pick up a phone and call customer support. That just doesn't happen. There's no one to call at Google to say, okay, I'm having issues with some people not receiving their notification for my live streams. It just doesn't work like that. If I write that in a support line, in an email or a chat, that's exactly what I'm going to get. Then I'll have all sorts of people respond to me that don't know what they're talking about. It's just I'll be thrown based on keywords, a bunch of articles that don't apply. So that's a waste of time. I will get to the comments in just a second. I was running through what content, what videos you can look forward to over the next week or so. So for anybody joining us late here, understand that we were going to talk Miami football here at 1 o'clock Eastern time on a Thursday. We hope to do that on Saturday, but we had a change of plans, unfortunately. Therefore, I'm just taking calls. I'm going to review the 1983 college football season national championship race. There is a debate over who should have won the national championship. This was brought to me recently by DeAndre, who always has his eye on the historic framework of college football and particular controversies from the past. So I will be addressing the 1983 season, which I remember very well, watched all the bowl games and watched that thing to the finish. The Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and the Cotton Bowl were factoring into the national championship at that point for that particular season. And also when DeAndre brought this up to me, I mentioned Illinois, which for him was completely off the radar. And I explained why Illinois factored into the national championship in 1983. So I'm going to address the 1983 national championship race, what happened, who should have won the national championship, what that national championship race would have looked like in the BCS era, what that national championship race would have looked like today in the college football playoff era. So those are the videos that I'm prepared to post in the next week. Then I've written down some other topics based on your feedback that I would like to dive into in the next several weeks. SEC supremacy, so Alabama is dominated for the most part. LSU obviously is the national champion right now, but since Nick Saban showed up, Alabama has owned the SEC for the most part. It's not been a Clemson complete domination of a conference. But who's the next team to take over in the SEC? Is there a next team, or will it continue to be Alabama? SEC supremacy, who will own the next decade? Who's Ohio State's biggest threat in the Big Ten? Who is Clemson's biggest threat in the ACC? So those are the two programs that have, at an elite level, dominated their respective conferences for the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Oklahoma, of course, in the Big 12. So the situation there is that Texas has actually out-recruited, based on the rankings, out-recruited Oklahoma. So I will address that. Texas takeover. Is Texas prepared to take over the Big 12? What's going on with Chip Kelly at UCLA? Chip Kelly led Oregon to a 33-3 conference record, 46-7, a national championship game. Came that close to winning the whole thing. Had his team in the top 5 consistently over his final 3 to 4 years. Again, 33-3, that's 36 conference games, 9 years, 9 games per year. That's, of course, 4 years for Chip Kelly at Oregon. They were elite. So again, the elite argument. Is Oregon elite? No. Is Oregon historically elite? No. Was Oregon elite for those 4 years? Yes. When will USC be USC again? When will Nebraska be Nebraska again? I will answer those questions. And other ones. So I left this post, I left these topics on the community page a couple days ago and asked for your suggestions on other topics you would like to see me break down and analyze, like those. I am hoping to get to, this is the overarching goal. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to be able to hit this, but I would like to get to post the top 5 at every position in every conference for 2020. So you're talking about the 5 major conferences, 10 or 11 positions. You're talking about 55 videos. I almost completed that a couple years ago. Almost got to it. But the Pac-12 top 5 quarterbacks and running backs will be released in the next few days. Well, Darren, Georgia, based on what they've seen happening elsewhere in college football and based on the emergence or the arrival at quarterback of Jamie Newman from Wake Forest and his skill set, that is the question right there. What is their offense going to look like with Jamie Newman and his ability to run? What are they going to do with that as opposed to what they did with Jake Fromm? I would think that their expansion of the offense should be evident this year. Now, they didn't have a spring practice, and that would have been the ideal situation for them and Jamie Newman. But still, he's an experienced quarterback. That should change. Dalton, good to see you. Ballard, if I didn't say hi, I'm saying it now. Good to see you as well. Navy Thomas. The Big Ten Conference announced today that it will extend the previously announced suspension of all organized team activities through June 1st, 2020, and will reevaluate again at that time. I think that's just a clarification of where the conference stood before that. So the one school I kept hearing about was the University of Iowa saying that it was going to start, that it was going to allow student athletes to work out on campus and open up campus to athletic activities starting on June 1st. So the only disparity there would be Iowa coming out and saying, we will open on June 1st, and this is what it is, versus the Big Ten coming out and saying, June 1st is the target. That's what we're hoping to do, but we will reevaluate. So there's a difference there. Captain Trips, good to see you. Darren's a big Buckeyes fan. Good to see you, Darren, for the first time ever in our chat. Would love to know how long you've been watching. Big George on the line for just a few minutes. George, even when he doesn't have time, and I don't know if you're still listening, George, but I appreciate George just at least saying, bam, I see the live stream's up. I'm going to jump in, say hi to everyone, and let you know, boom, I'm pumping my fist. I got your back. I'm supporting you. Got to go. Got other things to do. Working right now. Actually working. Listen while you work. It's a great theory. Chris Freeman. Chris, I apologize if you've commented before, but I don't recall ever seeing your handle either in the live chat or in the comments section, letting us know Texas is not back. So, Chris, I'm going to guess that you're either just a Texas hater or you're an Oklahoma fan, but would love to know how long you've been watching. And I got to say this, and even though I can't give it the big wind up like I used to all the time, because all this mess back here and the mic's in the way, but I'm not using the mic. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Chris, would love to know who you root for. Uh-oh, I've lost my spot in the chat. Luke Walker, it's been a while. Luke, good to see you. An all-sport rivalry. That's a different angle to it. We know about Duke, North Carolina basketball, all-sport rivalry. In football, North Carolina and North Carolina State is reserved for the final weekend of the season in the ACC. So the ACC is deemed North Carolina State to be more of a rivalry in a football sense, but North Carolina Duke is certainly a rivalry. Dale, good to see you. Brian Johnson, we don't want the series to end. We will still hate you more than ever. See us in November. Go Bucks. Dale is asking, can Notre Dame be competitive long-term if they do not join a Power 5 conference? Will it take an expanded playoff for Notre Dame to remain relevant? Okay. When you say competitive, obviously Notre Dame is more than competitive right now. If you're just talking about competitive, when I think competitive, I'm thinking Rutgers is not competitive. Notre Dame is one of the, over Brian Kelly's stay at Notre Dame since 2012, especially since they went to the national championship game that year. Think about this. In 2012, Notre Dame was in the BCS national championship game. I always like to make that differentiation. They were in the BCS championship game. Was it a real national championship game? No, it was two teams that were selected to play in a game. Two teams of the 4 or 5 that probably could have argued that they belonged. So anyway, Notre Dame played in the championship game in 2012, was certainly not up to the task, but they made the game in 2012. 2015, they came within just an eyelash of going to the college football playoff. Lost to Stanford on a late field goal. And in 2018, of course, they went to the college football playoff as an undefeated team. So I'm not seeing where Notre Dame is not able to compete. Even though they have shown not to be at the elite level, because when they play the elites, they always lose. And when I say always, you got to be careful with that term. But with Notre Dame, in recent years, I can say always lose to the elite. And frequently are drubbed. Alabama, Clemson, the 2 games we mentioned. But they've also been competitive against the elite at times. Georgia last year on the road in Athens. Georgia a couple of years before, in which we didn't necessarily see Georgia as an elite then, but coming off an 8-5 season in Kirby Smart's first year, But what happened? Georgia came that close, just a whisker from winning the national championship, and Notre Dame played them within 1 point. So Notre Dame, I'm not seeing the evidence that Notre Dame cannot compete in this format. After the elite level, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, I consider those to be the elites. And if LSU can keep it up, of course, they played out of their minds last year. But LSU, I need to see more. I need to see that happen for 3 or 4 years. Not winning national championship, but recruit at that level and then turn it into results on the field. Georgia's the weakest argument of the elites that I just mentioned, and Oklahoma's kind of lost maybe between tier 1 and tier 2 because they are clearly not tier 1, but they are dominating their conference. Therefore, they've both distinguished themselves above tier 2, but also they're in a good position being in that conference where they've been able to win and reach those major games and go to the playoffs above the Notre Dames, Penn States, and Michigans. Those three are almost on their own level. There's almost a very small second tier. Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, and the other schools that I'm going to mention that would be on that second tier have just arrived back at the second tier. Florida. It's only been 2 years that Florida's played really good football. Well, 2015, 16, 17. Yeah. Because there was a 4-8 season there. So Texas looked like they were on tier 2. They were announcing they were back at tier 1 after beating Oklahoma in the regular season and winning the Sugar Bowl, but no. So yeah, the tier 2, it starts to get a bit muddy because I think that while Notre Dame, Penn State, and Michigan are clearly there, the other ones have just arrived, like Oregon. Just based on one season, are we going to say they're on tier 2? It's only been one season. They played like it last year. They won the Rose Bowl. They won the Pac-12. And again, Oklahoma's kind of lost somewhere in between tier 1 and tier 2. So Rod Farva, great to see you. Sir, you had some very complimentary things to say about our channel and what we do the other day, so I appreciate that very much. Beast Mode, it's been a long time, Beast Mode. Luke Walker's North Carolina and NC State rivalry, or North Carolina and Wake. It would, in the current format, I unfortunately can't keep the phone number up there at the same time that I like to post your comments and keep the comments up there. I could read the comments from this laptop, but I like to post them to the screen so everyone can see the comments. Understand that the only comments I don't take to the screen is if you guys are in your own discussion back and forth and it's meaningless to the wide audience, the overall audience. I take the rest of the comments to the screen. But the Rod Farva, there is the call-in number, 860-325-3687. Whoa, look at that. On it. Although I'm almost up against it here.
The call will start at the beep.
It's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hi, this is Rod Farva. How you doing?
I'm doing great. This is the first time you've called, correct?
Good, man. You what?
This is the first time you've called, correct?
No, this is the second time I've called.
Second time. Okay.
We talked about when the list of the 100 greatest college football players came out by ESPN, and I called maybe a month or two ago.
Okay, cool. Thanks for calling.
Right. So the reason why I'm calling, I was trying to get on the last live call because I remember you kind of highlighted my comments about Jim Harbaugh.
though I am an Ohio State fan, I am critical of the guy, but I still think he's a good coach, and I still think Michigan's a very good program, and there's really no excuse why they aren't more successful than what they are. And I kind of wanted to segue that topic into two other programs, because I was talking with some other people in the chat about who are the top programs, mainly Texas and USC. So what I wanted to get with Harbaugh is just kind of what your thoughts are, maybe why is it he's not more successful? Yes, he's improved the program, but I don't think he inherited as big of a mess as people say. I think Hoke did clean up a massive circus that Rich Rod created, and then Brady Hoke recruited all those good players that was part of that 11-player draft class that included like Maurice Hurst. I think Jordan Lewis was in that class.
Yep.
I'm not correct. So anyway, just wondering, so why is it he's able to get those players and develop those, but no skill players when he's the offensive kind of mindset coach? And just kind of what your thoughts were on that. And then I wanted to kind of segue into another question.
Okay, so my thoughts on that are that so we of course have a mindset in this country overall that if you don't win the championship, then you failed. And he's being paid to win championships. So I want to make that clear that if Jim Harbaugh was paid as the 20th highest paid coach in the country, then that should be the expectation of the program that he runs, is that they're a top 25 team, and that's fine. They go 8-4, 9-3, and that's what they are. But he's being paid at the very highest level to win championships. So he should be judged in that way.
Exactly.
Based on what he accomplished at his 3 other stops at major football programs collegiately and at San Francisco, I thought it was a great hire based on, again, being able to build those programs to places that they hadn't been. And then also, obviously, his love and passion and attachment to Michigan. I thought it was the perfect hire. So you're right. So what he's accomplished and what he's built there shouldn't be overstated. It should be given some credit because he has improved the program, but not as dramatically as just they went 5-7 the year before he was there, and then all of a sudden they won 10 games and won a bowl game. There was a talent base that was very good, and we saw that in the 2011 team that won the Sugar Bowl, and the team after that lost to Jadeveon Clowney in the Outback Bowl was a really good team in 2012. And they lost to a lot of elite teams by one score, Ohio State being one. So they played competitively on the field, even more so with Ohio State, even though the records weren't as good. So
exactly.
I think that they have basically played on par with Penn State and Notre Dame the past 3 to 5 years, and there's no shame in that. But the goal is beating Ohio State, and Ohio State's one of the top 3 programs and most talented rosters in the country. So they're just not to that level. They're also in a difficult place. Being in Michigan, they're in a difficult place. They've got to go out and get their talent, and Ohio State does as well to get the elite talent. But they don't have to do it as much as Ohio State. Ohio State has more of a recruiting base in Ohio than Michigan does in Michigan.
True, but if you look at the last maybe a year or two, the state of Michigan has had some really good players, and they're not getting all of them. I mean, when you see a player like Justin Rogers, one of the best players in the states, going to Kentucky, I mean, what does that say? You know what I mean? So, I mean, I think there's this. I mean, I'm not trying to speculate. I'm not an insider by any means, but I'm just trying to maybe there's something else going on that we don't know in terms of culture, because you hear rumors. But again, those are just rumors. They're internet rumors, so I'm not going to speculate too much. But it's still, what's mind-boggling is that he has talent there, but why is he getting blown out? You know what I mean? And whereas Penn State is much more competitive with Ohio State. You see Iowa obviously beating and being competitive with Ohio State. So what's the difference? Are they just not taking the game with Ohio State as serious? Which to me is absurd and crazy, considering what they're paying him. You're giving him a pay increase without accomplishing anything, and then they're just kind of seeing it as, well, I'm just going to view it as another game. No, they brought you in to beat Ohio State. period, and to get Michigan back at that elite level. Because I truly believe Michigan is still not only one of the biggest brands in college football, they're one of the biggest brands in sports still.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they have a 100,000 seat stadium on their campus for a reason. And I just, you know, I listen to, you know, Steve Dace, a guy you have on quite a bit. He made some good comments about how, you know, they're paying for Alabama results in terms of what they're paying, what they're paying Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
But they're paying for Alabama results, and they're getting 8-4, 9-3, you know, and it's not good enough. And another thing he said, it's not that Michigan can't be competitive and that Michigan can't be elite, it's that Michigan won't. And I took that as kind of an indictment on the culture, like the fans, the admins, you know, like, do people really want an elite program? And I think they do, you know, because I know a lot of Michigan fans. I know Michigan alumni, but it's just like, you kind of get a vibe when you're starting to see more of the excuses, when you got people like national media, like Mike Greenberg come up, well, Michigan was never really this elite program anyway. I think that's a load of BS, considering all the hype that he had coming in before 2015, like right when he got hired. So I think they're kind of taking a step back. And so anyway, what I also wanted to segue to was, so do you think, for one, if he does not beat Ohio State or at least make it to Indy this year, do you think he's done? Is he going to leave? And I also wanted to kind of get to what are they going to do? Like, where could you see Michigan? What direction could you see them going if Harbaugh were to leave? And because there's going to be two possible really big jobs open if Texas doesn't get it together, and the same with USC, and then you can maybe even throw in Miami in there. So you're going to have really four possible. I'm not speculation, but like there's four possible major programs that are going to have coaching openings, and I just know how they can recover from that.
So you went a lot of places there, but I do think that
I did.
No, that's great.
I'm sorry.
That's great. That's not a complaint. That's wow, I got like 8 different thoughts running through my mind in terms of where to take this conversation. You brought up the term absurd hit me because that's exactly what it is. That it's absurd that so I think that your typical Michigan fan, this isn't every Michigan fan. I'm not big into stereotyping because everybody's got their own minds and own perspective. But I think a large portion of them dismiss the rivalry now and lower the importance based on what else do you do? That's just a defense mechanism to say, well, it's not everything. It's not the world. It's not just all encompassing, all consuming to us. And that's a good defense mechanism and a good counterpoint, the best they can do to trying to explain why they've gotten their brains beaten out 15 out of 16 years. I don't think that in general, the rivalry has meant as much to the Michigan side as the Ohio State side in general, even before this. I saw a tweet by somebody recently from a Michigan fan / supporter that said something about kind of just, I don't remember what the terminology was, but just to give the impression that, you know, we have better things to think about. We have other things to think about. We live a more balanced existence, and Ohio State's obsessed with us. And my response, which I rarely troll and jump in on other people's tweets, but certainly we've got some kind of connection on Twitter. I don't remember who it was, that it's right there to be responded to. And I said, that's fine, but it takes obsession to be elite. If you want to excel, if you want to be a champion, if you want to be, you know, go back to Vince Lombardi and the ridiculous comments that he would make about, you know, if you're not number one, then you're a loser. If winning's not everything, it's the only thing. That if you're not obsessed like that, if you don't at least start with that mindset, then you're going to be second or third or fourth or 10th in the country or whatever. You're not going to win championships if you're not obsessed with being elite, with being excellent, with being great. So fine, if that's what you want your existence to be, that's what it's going to be. I think Jim Harbaugh has obviously not been able to either, one, recruit the right quarterback or develop the right quarterback So that's been pretty obvious. They've had capable quarterbacks, but capable typically, and we could pretty much say during this college football playoff era and even before, when's the last time a team won a national championship and didn't have a great college quarterback? I'm trying to think, who would that be? That would be an Alabama team that basically, that would be an A.J. McCarron who was really good and had an NFL team around him. That would be the exception. So he hasn't done that. He's had Jake Rudock and those types of players. He's either had that type of player or a Shea Patterson who was supposed to be a dynamic skill set, but is kind of a poor man's Russell Wilson or Fran Tarkenton. And again, that's not good enough.
Right, and he's supposed to be the quarterback developer too, which is why it's such a head scratcher. Why he can't, because if you think about it, and after 5 years being there, he's only had one quarterback start for him that he recruited out of high school, and that was Brandon Peters, who is now the starting quarterback at Illinois.
Sure.
And that's crazy. And you know, and that was his biggest reputation, was the quarterback whisperer, the quarterback guru, you know, this offensive genius. And it's like they're still playing like this bow ball from the 1980s. And I think that's another thing too, going back, you know, they're going back to the fan mindset. I mean, why they kind of step away from thinking they were ever elite, because the difference was in the 80s and 90s, not only were they beating Ohio State, they were beating Notre Dame too. So they kind of had that complacency and that kind of like, well, this is good enough. You know, we're beating these two great programs. So, yeah, we're getting to the Rose Bowl, not always winning it, but, hey, we're doing good enough. And now that they're not winning the Ohio State game, and then, like, Notre Dame will start to improve and kind of adapt to modern-day college football, I think Michigan was kind of left in the back, you know what I'm saying? And then so that's why they hired Harbaugh, who I thought was killing it at first, you know, getting the Michigan brand name back out there, going on the satellite cams. He was going to all these, like, he would show up to these rap concerts and things like that, and showing up, hanging out with all these other celebrities, which I think was actually a good thing. It was kind of annoying as an Ohio State fan, but at the same time, that's smart, because that's what you got to do to appeal to the younger generation. And then it just suddenly just seemed like it hit a wall, and now you don't really see him, you know, out as much. You don't see him taking accountability when after a team loses. It's the same excuse, you know. It's like, hey, I thought we played really hard. We had a good week of practice. The team played better. We're going to regroup and try better next week. That's what he says every single loss. So I just don't know how much longer the Michigan fans are going to put up with it. But at the same time, you know, that's going to be 3 straight coaches now that they're going to have fired, and they're going to be paying, you know, that they're still going to be paying after they fire them. Like, they had to pay Rich Rod quite a bit of money and Hope quite a bit of money after they had fired them. So I don't think Michigan really wants to handle that PR mess once again. So, but I honestly, as an Ohio State fan, I do hope they get better. Just for the sake of the rivalry, and I can acknowledge, you know, when a program like that is good, it's good for the sake of college football. You know, I want Miami to be good. I want USC to be good. I even want Texas to be good. So it's just, you know, just gives a much more balance to the sport. Whereas, you know, we're just seeing this Southern dominance for the last really 2 decades now. Which I think.
Well, let's understand something though. You've said a bunch of things again. I've got about 4 things that I want to hit on here. So, and the last thing would be what you just mentioned about the Ohio State fan says that they want Michigan to be better and be competitive, but I don't think you want the 2 teams to split the next 10 years. You don't want to go 5-5, right? So you want to continue to beat Michigan, and you want them to be better in the other games. But basically, if Michigan would have beaten Ohio State instead of losing to, it's not like Michigan's winning 5 games every year. Had they beaten Ohio State, they would have their share of Big Ten championships and college football playoff appearances the last 5 years. They would have gone to the college football playoff in 2016 and won the Big Ten. They would have won the Big Ten in 2018. Yeah. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I hear you now. Yeah, it cut out for a little bit. Sorry. So I missed what you said the last, like, 30 seconds there.
Okay. I'm going to take on like 4 points here real quick. One would be, so as an Ohio State fan, I understand that many say, as you just did, I want to be competitive, or I want Michigan to be competitive, but I'm sure that you don't want to split the next 10 years with Michigan. You want to still win the next 10 years against Michigan, right? You don't want to go 5-5 or 6-4 with Michigan, and that would be competitive.
Well, no, obviously not, but like.
So
the
point being,
but you still want them competing with the other national
but they are
programs on their schedule.
But they are competing with them. Right. They are the second. So basically, if Michigan would have beaten Ohio State, they're doing enough otherwise to win Big Ten championships most of the time under Harbaugh. If they would have beaten Ohio State in 2015, 2016, 2018, they would have been the Big Ten champion and gone to the playoff in the last two of those.
Cutting on a little bit. Hopefully, I'm not cutting you off, but I don't know. I just see a different aspect because like when they're playing these teams that have equal or better talent, they're not really competitive, with the exception of just a handful of games. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, I think they could be doing a lot better.
I understand that, but if Michigan had beaten Ohio State 3 of these times under Harbaugh, they would have won the Big Ten championship. So they are doing enough otherwise. All right, we may have a phone issue here. All right. So anyway, there was so much there to uncover and things that I had to say, and I just don't have time, unfortunately. Got to move on to a USC discussion that we've got coming up here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. That's going to be a record that's going to be released later. So my apologies there. There was a ton to dive into, and you can't imagine how much I wanted to take on. Oh, there was a lot that I wanted to take on with the Rod Farva there concerning Harbaugh. I wanted to go through, a lot. All right. But my last point, or my only point there out of about what was going to be about 5 or 6, is that if you're an Ohio State fan and you say, Michigan, we want you to be competitive. Well, it's not like Michigan's winning 5 games and you're saying you need to win 10 games and be competitive with us when we play you. No, Michigan's doing enough in the other games to win a Big Ten championship. In 2015, 16, 18, Michigan would have won the Big, and what? Not quite 19, because they had lost to Penn State and Wisconsin. So they still would not have won the Big Ten. But anyway, 2015, 16, and 18, 3 out of 4 years, had Michigan beaten Ohio State, they would have won the Big Ten championship. They would have gone to the Big Ten championship game, knocked out Ohio State, and those 2 final times in 16 and 18 gone to the college football playoff. So Michigan did enough in the other games. So it's not like, well, you need to be more competitive. They're competitive enough throughout the rest of the schedule. All right, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I would love to do this for another few hours, but we're talking USC football with Matt Lowry of Conquest Chronicles in just a few minutes, and only have 31 on the line anyway. So I appreciate you guys stopping by. Sorry that I couldn't get through the live chat. Subscribe, turn on the bell for the notifications. That's when you know when we are going live. See you next time. Sunday night, again, 10 o'clock Eastern time, or a time to be announced. We are going to run through all our conference realignment videos, and I will answer all the questions. There's been a lot of interesting questions and debates about what I've done wrong with the conference realignment. I will answer all those questions, go through all the comments that have been sent to me, and your calls, and in the live chat on Sunday right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Ohio State fans and all college football fans, Friday at 1, tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern time, we're talking Ohio State football, Ohio State Buckeyes live right here. Yes, P Digits, like the video. Thank you.